All right. Welcome, everybody. Another episode of Legend Sports and Amplify. We're here just about every day, a couple times a week, talking baseball history, Negro League baseball history, minor leagues, collecting card art, you name it, all those passions and pursuits that go along with being a baseball fanatic like most of us are. And I'm really happy today to have on. He's the founder of Roberto's Kids and works at the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Steve Pindar, how are you, sir?
Excellent. How are you today, Phil?
I am doing good, doing good. I love talking to people it's kind of back from my neck of the woods. I told you I grew up in Northeast PA. I was only a couple hours away from Cooperstown and haven't been there long because I've been out of Pennsylvania for a while. But love the Northeast. It's getting into that time of year when wish I was back there because of the weather and everything else. But um, so we're going to talk today about Roberto's Kids, your charity that does some
Mhm.
great work and has a great mission statement. We'll talk a little bit about your background with being visitor services coordinator at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and some other things. But I love to hear people's origin stories. How do you get from where you were a while back to where you're sitting today? Because I told you, I think there's a lot of inspiration. Besides telling the stories of baseball history, Negro League baseball history, minor leagues, things like that, the writers and authors and so forth that have done that research, I like to highlight how did people get to where they are, because there's a lot of people out there with some great ideas that probably wish, they could get do some things as well, and some of these provide some inspiration. So tell us how'd you get to where you're walking the halls of the hall?
Well, a common question I get working at the hall is, people, are you local? And I say yes, and and then I get this look from people when they say, well, where were you born? I said, I was born right here in Cooperstown. And people look at me like, no. And I said, really? People actually were born in Cooperstown. And then we make a joke out of it saying, well, I wasn't born at the Hall of Fame, although I wish I was, but I was born in Cooperstown. And like you said, we were at one point in our lives, Phil, 2 hours apart,
Mm-hmm.
Scranton to Oneonta, Cooperstown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Baseball has always been a big part of my life. Through the years, got two sons who played, Pee Wee to Little League all the way up to college. Me, not so much. I'm the bearer of some bad knees. Other than that, it's an absolute love of mine. Absolute love of mine. Oh goodness! Before the Hall of Fame, let's see. I worked in the minor league in the minors for the actually Oneonta Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Formerly the Oneonta. Excuse me, I worked for the Oneonta Tigers. It was the Oneonta Yankees in the New York Penn League from 1967
Oh
until
wow.
'98.
Oh wow.
They then moved to Staten Island, and then the Tigers came in. I worked for them on their very last year that they were here, actually. They then moved to Connecticut. Very proud of the ballpark that they played in. It was the Maskey Field. Um, those who know baseball, and I've got a lot of friends who, through years, who know that ballpark very well. It is actually one of the oldest ballparks in the United States, using its original design. It was like 1906.
Wow.
It's a very historic ballpark. Babe Ruth played there on a barnstorming tour in 1920, and the list goes on and on. Once the Tigers left for Connecticut, that was the smaller markets through the years have become more enticing to collegiate wood
Mm-hmm.
basketball. So the Oneonta Outlaws came in, which was exactly that, a member of the New York Collegiate Baseball League, very similar to the Cape, obviously, but not prestige, notoriety the Cape has. And I was the GM there for 6 years. I
Nice.
then went on and was the president of that same league for a year, and I got a call from, I had volunteered at the Hall of Fame for a couple of their Hall of Fame classics, which once again now is, because of the pandemic, we couldn't have it for 2 years, but we are going to hold the Hall of Fame Classic again this year, Memorial Day weekend. Press release went out today stating more and more Hall of Famers. There's now 7 Hall of Famers coming back for it, which is going to be tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out there part time. One thing led to another, and I then was was a full-time position that opened up. I interviewed for it, and we were very lucky to have it.
Awesome.
People ask me all the time, is this a dream job? And of course, the answer is, if you like baseball, it is not a job at all. It's an absolute pleasure to come to work every single day, because you're really not coming to work, and I mean that. I mean that sincerely. I have people ask me, all the time, well, you must be Hall of Famers sometimes. Well, number one, I can't really talk about that, but I say, well, yeah, of course we see a lot of the, ball players, et cetera. But then I quickly say to people, which is the absolute truth, it's not necessarily seeing those people. That is wonderful. But I said, what makes the job very, very special to me is every single person that comes through that front door, because you alluded to this a few minutes ago when we were getting just to know each other a little, and you didn't know I was going to use it myself. Every single person that comes through that door has a story. Everybody has a story. It doesn't matter if it's, we get the bucket list stuff all the time, which is wonderful. But you got the man and someone 90 years old who's in tears out front waiting to come in because he's never been there, and the list goes on and on. I went to high school with Pete Rose. Let's see. I was George Springer's Legion coach. I was Mike Trout's high school coach, and the list goes on and on and on. Everybody has a story. It's absolutely, that's what really, really thrills it for me.
I bet it's a beautiful thing. I know exactly what you're saying, because when I was working in minor league baseball for those years, and obviously Cooperstown, this is a mythological place. I mean, when people ask you, is it? Yeah, I could believe why people think, oh my goodness, it's like it's something out of mythology. But even working in minor league baseball, every single day, I could not wait to get to the ballpark. I could not wait to be sitting in the best seat in the house, second level, overlooking home plate. But like you're talking about, everybody that came to that stadium, you wanted to do your best. You wanted to put on the best show that you could, because you don't know most of those people. You may never meet them. However, you don't know when they may ever be able to come back. So while they're there, you want to give them a great experience. So I get it. I think it's fantastic. I just had on Dan Vaughn of the voice of the Kansas City Monarchs, who used to be the T-Bones. Now they're the Kansas City Monarchs, the Reign Reborn, renamed as the Monarchs in Kansas City. And we were talking about the same things. And you wanted to put on your best effort every single day. So I can imagine the stories that you have heard over the years. How long have you been there now at the Hall of Fame?
I'm heading for 5 years now.
Okay, very, very cool.
Yep.
So you're going to have, like you mentioned, a number of new candidates being enshrined this year.
It'll be a great summer.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people coming up there with
summer.
the
three
buck.
Living, 7 total in this year's class, 3 living. So Tony Oliva, Jim Cott, and as the Big Poppy, David Ortiz, all coming in this summer. It's going to be a great summer.
It's going to be fantastic.
Everybody's excited.
And there will be a bunch of people I know coming from Kansas City and from those surrounding areas for Buck O'Neill as well.
A lot of people we've heard that a lot of people are going to a lot of Mets. Out of respect for Gil Hodges will be coming, so it should be a great summer.
Should be a lot of fun, and it's good that things are getting back to pretty much mostly normal, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How long?
People ask, did you have to shut down at all during the pandemic? And we did 103 days. We were March 16th, 2020 to June 26th. Since then, we've been open, every single day except for our 3 that were closed every year: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Now, like everybody else, when we reopened, we had the limitations on the number of people we could have in the museum at any given time, et cetera, et cetera. But all those things are gone now. It's just it's wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, we need to get back to normal. With the baseball season this past year, I kept saying over the winter, just relax. It'll be okay. Everything will be okay. They'll get it together. We've been through this before. I mentioned this to Dan as well. I think social media sometimes gets people worked up into a frenzy, and everybody wants to have a hot take on this or that and say something. But they figured it out. out. It's unfortunate, but at least we're back to baseball and we're back to playing baseball, and
Yep.
we'll get this into the summertime, and hopefully everything will all just get back to normal. That's I think what everybody wants from all this, right?
Yep.
So Roberto's kids. I mean, I try to put out something every single day on a player, a city, a tour, a something that has to do with either black baseball, Negro League baseball, Latin baseball history, and I don't generally send out things that have to do with the big names because everybody knows the Jackie Robinsons and the Satchel Pages and the Josh Gibsons and the Roberto Clementes, and that's I let you guys and I let Danny Torres with Talking 21 handle most of that, but I do like to send out some things on them when I think that they're needed. And you have it right in your mission. My favorite Roberto Clemente quote of all time: anytime you have the opportunity to make a difference in the world and you don't,
Right.
you're wasting your time on this earth. And I think that it's absolutely true.
Yeah, he was pretty succinct that way. The Roberto, he didn't mince words, which was that was a great thing actually.
Yeah, no, I do. So tell us about Roberto's kids.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Um, 1990, oh, excuse me, 1998. Actually, my wife and I went with our church on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic. One of those very typical church short-term mission trip, construction, medical, dental, that kind of thing. And a year later, my local Little League called up and said, we got some stuff that we don't want anymore. It's usable, but we just don't need it. We know you and your wife have been active in the DR for a while now, and baseball is huge here. Would you like the stuff? And I said, yeah, I would. So it kind of started from there. From 99 until '05, we were a family project. We were collecting, we did everything. We collected it on this end, put it in large duffel bags. When we would take a trip to the DR, we would pack carry-on luggage, and the duffels would be our luggage. The other end, we would unpack it and
Wow.
distribute it. By '05, we had out, which was a great thing. We had outgrown the duffel bags. We were probably up to 2 or 3 tons a year by then, so we had to start shipping by sea. And I'm in the fall of 2005. I said to my wife, as great as this is, my heart tells me this is still just the tip of the iceberg. As I said,
Mhm.
there's got to be equipment everywhere that people would be willing to donate. They'd be happy, thrilled to donate, et cetera, et cetera. I did not work at the hall then, but being a local, I've always been lucky to have friends there. I reached out to the hall, and it was meant to be. They put me in touch with the Clemente family.
Nice.
I actually met Roberto Jr. and Luis in January of 2006, and they very kindly gave us permission to use their father's name, and Roberto's kids was born. And I tell people from then until now, it has been the most tremendous emotional ride of my life. We have grown and grown and grown. The Clemente family and the Clemente Foundation have no official affiliation with us, nor do we with them. That said, we have a very close relationship with the Clemente Foundation, and I'm very humbled to say that my wife and I have become very good friends with the Clemente family over the years. If they need anything, they contact us, and if I, need to have a question or so and so, I contact them. So, um, something we chatted about earlier too. I am not a person who believes too much in coincidences. I'm one of those people that's a kind of a meant to be, meant to happen kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that's kind of how things have proceeded. If you fast forward to now, let's fast forward to just before the pandemic. I guess let's fast forward to just before the pandemic. We are literally distributing all over the world. We started in the DR, then went to Puerto Rico, and I had said to myself all along, we will not consider adding another country to our distribution list until we have a fail-safe, a very, very secure system of distribution in the country. Not being critical at all, but third world countries are exactly what people hear they are. And I'm not going to run the risk of having our items get to a country and disappear, et cetera, et cetera. Third world countries do have their share of graft and corruption, et cetera.
Hmm.
So slowly added on countries after country. We added Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, Nicaragua, and then it went from there. Goodness gracious, it went from there. We have distributed in Cuba before, and then we spread. Then it really spread to, oh boy, let's see, Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, uh, Benin, Cameroon, and then other countries, Philippines, Pakistan, India,
Wow.
Siberia, Serbia, Croatia. It's, I was doing an interview a couple of years ago, and the interviewer very kindly said to me, "Has Roberto's kids growth gone beyond your wildest dreams?" And my answer then was no. If the same reporter asked me, or if any reporter asked me that question today, the answer is absolutely positively yes. It's gone beyond my wildest dreams. To think that some of our items are ending up 5,000 miles away, it's just unbelievable to me.
It's fantastic. I mean, boy, oh boy, I can only imagine the impact that that's having. I mean, I was to the Dominican Republic several years ago. I got your name from Andy Brown, like I mentioned, who met you at the
Good,
Hall of Fame, and he was just
very
down.
good friend.
Yeah, he was just down in the Dominican Republic for 4 months doing
Right,
his artwork and his project, and
right.
incredible stuff.
Now,
And
I was
and
able to, very fortunately, I apologize for interrupting, but I was
that's
able to
okay.
connect him with a lot of my friends down there, and
Nice.
he had some wonderful times,
Oh,
some
I can
wonderful times.
imagine. I can imagine. I mean, yeah, and like, and the context that you've made, I try to follow these. I don't think many people, maybe they do, but many people I don't think realize that there is baseball in Finland. Or I just started following the other day, and they've been very, 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 very sweet. It was baseball in Sierra Leone. It's a brand new.
They're
Uh,
trying to grow it in the UK, as you know. Andy's a big
yeah,
proponent in the UK.
it is everywhere, and that I think is how you grow it. I mentioned this to you before we got on. I mean, when I was a kid, I obviously, was playing. My dad coached me, like many of us, growing up, from when I could first walk, and baseball just was in your blood, and you played it, and it was, um, I went on to coach, and for many, many years after that, and it seems like today's baseball for younger groups is becoming, um, more of a kind of, I don't want to, it is more of a paper play. It's losing that kind of luster. And just to give you an example, you mentioned, um, I lived in Virginia Beach, and I know you mentioned someone who has a distribution in Virginia Beach, or did.
Mhm.
Kempsville Pony Baseball. I coached there for about 6 years. While my nephews were coming up through all that through pony baseball. It doesn't exist anymore
Right.
because it's all been replaced by AAU and all of the select and those travel teams, and it's a shame because it's a way for kids to not just learn the sport, become fans, and it's also character building. So many more things that go
Exactly.
into it.
Sportsmanship, everything. It's all
Mhm.
one part of the package. Yep, you're right.
And so that's another thing that you're also trying to focus on, right? It's more than just the equipment when you go and talk to these
Right.
groups in other countries, right?
Right. It's we're about social responsibility. Our mission, very just a few words, is the social responsibility through baseball. We don't strictly. How do I explain this? Let's see.
Mhm.
Folks, obviously, the folks in third world countries, we would never expect any. These are donations; they're free. We'd never expect to pay for them. That's not who we are. That
Mhm.
said, we do, if at all possible, like our recipient organizations to do some type of community service, some type of project in order to get their stuff. That was actually recommended to me years ago by a mentor in the Dominican Republic. He said that the children will value and appreciate the equipment that much more if it was something they quote unquote earned. And so they'll clean up the courtyard in a barrio. They'll paint a concrete wall at a church. It's very, very simple stuff. But that makes it
Awesome.
such much more meaningful to the recipient organizations. And I agree. We didn't used to do that. I had one of my Dominican gentlemen. He's name is Rafael Perez. He's the director of international player development for the Mets. He's been a mentor to me for 20 years, and
Hmm.
that's one of the things he said to me, Steve. He said actually two things he said which have stuck with me. That was one of them. The other one was you have to be very, very careful on what you're doing. Nothing will ruin your reputation quicker than if your items get in the wrong hands when you ship it into one of these countries. So I've been very, very careful, through the years to make sure that we do have, as I said earlier, secure channels, systems of distribution in the countries.
Interesting. So do you have a list? How many countries in total? You mentioned you
Someone just
listed a
asked me.
bunch of them, but
I actually had just somebody just ask me that, and I'm failing on that. Well, I got to update it. Got to be in the 20s somewhere. I don't
yeah, I
know
mean,
where it is.
you named off pretty much close to that already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's got to
awesome,
be there. It's got to be
awesome.
there. Yeah. Plus, I apologize because very important is the fact that we also distribute in the United States and Canada. We receive donations from those countries, but we also distribute there. We will never ever. I have never turned a domestic donation down ever. Because we have the need just like everybody else. I used to have people,
Interesting.
well, don't you help in your own backyard? And my answer is yes, we do. If anybody, actually, I just had just this weekend, I had up in the Albany area. There was a girls' softball league that was loaded with equipment they no longer needed. That stayed in the Capital District. It turned out that the boys and girls clubs, the Capital District, the Albany area, needed the stuff. One thing went to another, and there it is. So sometimes I'm just a conduit. Sometimes I'm the connector. Sometimes I connect with one with the other. And then we've done a lot more uh, domestic distribution since the pandemic, and the reason for that is obvious because we couldn't ship. I mean, it was a long time, and we're just barely getting going now on being able to ship in some of these third world countries because of the pandemic, and that's all understandable. So we still were able to function at a slower pace during the pandemic, but it was all domestic, and I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely. That was one of my questions I was going to ask you. Where here in the United States or in North America do you do? You just answered that question. So
Oh,
yeah,
all over. We
yeah.
have collection hubs. We are 100% volunteer staffed and 100% volunteer based. I have never taken a penny out of Roberto's kids for a salary. No one has,
Hmm.
and all our volunteers, are all volunteers are non-salaried. We have collection hubs in where I am, obviously only on a Cooperstown area. Oh, we have them also in the Chicago area. We have them in Iowa, Texas. We got one in good friend in Pearland. Am I saying that? I would say that right, Pearland.
Pearland, yeah, it's not too
I've
far
got a
from
very
me.
good friend in
But
Pearland, Texas. We got one there. A couple in California. One in Ontario. I'm sure I'm missing something. So, and what the purpose of them is that we try to make it as easy as possible for people to donate to us. Meaning, Mrs. Smith calls me up today and she says, my son no longer plays ball. I've got a bunch of stuff. Would you like it? And I said, of course, of course. First she says, well, what are you looking for? Our frequently FAQs includes the list of what we want, et cetera, which I will talk about in a minute, which is just about
hmm
everything. And I said, okay, ma'am, where are you located? Oh, I'm outside of Chicago. Perfect. I connect her with
hmm
Chicago Collection Hub, and then it's easy. So she hasn't incurred any expense whatsoever because she just gets it to them and off we go. And then people ask, well, what do you accept? We're about the easiest, I think. Excuse me, I shouldn't say we're one of the easiest, excuse me, nonprofits to donate to. If it has to do with baseball, we want it. Cap, shirts, belts, pants, socks, cleats, and everything you use to play the game. Bats, balls, gloves, catcher's equipment, bat bags, pitching rubbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's two things that we ask people not to donate, and they're both very, very simple, but I still have to remind people. Pants. We get a lot of youth pants donated. When kids, as we all know, when kids get little league age, they're allowed to slide.
hmm
So I tell the moms or whoever called me, if you have a pair of pants with a very, very small hole or, in both knees or one knee, please donate them. We'll repair them and send them on. But if you have a pair of pants with huge holes in the knees and you wouldn't send your son out on the field, please just throw them away. It's a respect thing. I don't want a little kid in a third world country who's never worn a pair of baseball pants in his life, who
hmm
most generally plays barefoot in underwear, which they do all the time, to put a pair of pants on with holes in the knees. The other thing we ask people not to give us are faulty helmets. if you got a batting helmet, it is just maybe missing a piece of foam or the strap is broken. Absolutely, we'll repair it. Please give it to us. But if you have a helmet which is functionally, which is broken, I please, the cracked or whatever, please don't give that to us. Same theory. I don't want a little kid in a third world country to stand in there when one's coming in his head and think, oh, I got a helmet on, it's okay to get beamed, because it's not okay, because the helmet's going to fall off and he's going to be injured. Those are the only two items that we don't accept. Other than that, we take it for in all sizes, all ages, etc., from youth up to adult.
Awesome. That besides, so when I was reading through what you guys are doing, the teaching of the what you learn from baseball, as far as the camaraderie and teamwork and so forth, the collection of the equipment. The other thing that I noticed that you guys are doing, which I think is a beautiful thing. My wife is from Guadalajara originally, and she's a teacher here in the Houston area, and so we have many friends who are from Latin countries, Mexico,
Yep.
and so forth. And so your other piece of the mission that you're doing is kind of the connection of cultures too, right?
Yep.
Because there's more to sports than just winning, right? I mean, everybody has it's become recently this thing where you're trying to grow little first round draft picks and little Division One athletes, and that's kind of not what it was always about all these years. So I think the things that you guys are doing, both here and in other countries, is the type of thing that grows the sport and grows fans. And how do we get back to that here?
I wish I knew. I know, I really do. I think that's, and I think you'd agree, that's a $64,000 question at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has become big business. I mean, even the fact that when the community I live in, when the minor league team left, we knew, everyone who lived here said, we knew that was the end of the minors, because the small markets, are gone. And without being critical of anybody, Major League Baseball, I will eliminated, for lack of a better word, that I eliminated a whole lot of minor league teams last year, and literally gutted the New York Penn League, which is no longer exists. Mm-hmm. That was one of the older single A leagues in the country, and I was sad because I am an upstate New York boy who knows how important that ball is for all along the long. It's important for the visitors, for the players, for the local economy, and it's just like that. It's gone.
Yeah, it is an important part, and it's a connection to the community. And in many places, it's been there for, like you mentioned, a long time. And yes, I mean, some of these teams do become independent teams, and maybe they truck on. Others do not, but it is a connection to not just the community's history, baseball history, the country's history. There's so much of it. That's one of the things that, like I said, again, every day I try to point out something. The history of the sport. And baseball, the Negro Leagues, barnstorming, it's all around you. I mean, there's very few places, very few people that I talked to that there wasn't some player from the area, some player who played, some player who passed through. So it's just, I think, a great thing, and people, I think, need to not lose sight of that, because it's not all about, like I said, growing those first round draft picks and everything else. There's more to this sport. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche and corny, but it really is. This is part of our country's history. It's not called a national pastime for nothing. So yeah. So
and that's one. Obviously I'm biased, but that's one of the many wonderful things about the National Baseball Hall of Fame, mm-hmm. because it certainly has the ability to take people back to a different time very, very easily. Because we've got stuff. We go from 19. I mean, obviously way back, but the Baseball Hall of Fame opened in 1939.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about a lot of history there, and we do. We have a lot of history there.
Mm-hmm. Um, so it is robertos-kids.org, right?
Yes, sir.
So if they get in touch with you, as you mentioned, you will point them in the right direction as far as
Oh, please, if
what they need to do.
anything, if they're looking to receive, if they're looking to donate,
Okay.
please, and obviously, the question that comes up is, do you take monetary donations? And the answer is yes. That's not me out there waving my flag. That's never been my style. But any monetary donations that we do receive are used for shipping and storage, 100%.
Hmm. So you've been at the Baseball Hall of Fame for several years now.
Yes, sir.
What's some of your favorite stories? And now, okay, what is your role specifically as the director
Well,
of guest services?
actually, I've just transitioned. So I was the visitor services coordinator. I am now in the retail department as a supervisor. I can tell you what I was as the visitor services department acts as the face of the museum. It's
Hmm.
just like it is guest services by any other name. The visitor services people greet the guests when they come in. Hi, how are you today? This is how we should suggest you go through the floors. We tell them about our movie. We give tours. And if someone is obviously from the department is on duty in the gallery at all times, even though we have master charts that tell where you'll find everybody, sometimes people want to know where's Ted Williams, what year, where's Roberto Clemente, where's Lou Gehrig, et cetera, et cetera. You obviously take them and guide them to the statues, et cetera. And then the common questions: where are the bathrooms? Where's a good place to get something to eat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, as far as stories go, we've got stories. And what you know, I'm asked quite often by people, do you have one weekend here that was more memorable, or a specific time here that was more memorable than any other? Yes and no. Induction weekend 2018 probably is going to go down as one of the best weekends of my life. We had the second largest. I'll go back for a second. The largest crowd that we ever had for induction is 2007 Ripken Gwynn, 82,000. 82,000
Wow.
people came to that induction. That is also the weekend that the Hall of Fame to date set the largest one-day record for people going to the museum, just short of 15,000, 14.5 went to the museum in one day. Fast forward to the second largest crowd, which was 2018, which was 55,000. And I worked that weekend. On the Saturday, we had 9,000 people come to the museum. On the Sunday, we had 8,000 people come to the museum. And I had the time of my life. People say all the time, "Oh, wasn't it terribly stressful?" And so and so. And I said, no, because everybody that was there was happy to be there. Nobody was upset because they knew what they were getting into before they got there. They knew it was going to be crowded. They knew that they may have to wait to see the plaque of their favorite player, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what it's all about.
You might have
We
a
all
big
have
you might have a
we
big
all have
crowd this year.
It's gonna be good. Yeah, I have heard about people, from the hall, the senior staff, with any estimates yet, but it's got to be heading back, where we were pre-pandemic. Then different staff that work there, we all have favorite artifacts.
Hmm.
My Needless to say, no one will be surprised. My favorite artifact is the cap that Roberto Clemente was wearing. We got his 3,000th and final hit. That is my favorite artifact. My second favorite artifact would probably be Lou Gehrig's old jersey from 1939, his last year. Why that's very, very special, besides the fact that it was his jersey, is that on the top, where the buttons come up to the top of the jersey, there's a bunch of dirt right there. That we know, you have to realize that that's Lou Gehrig's hand put that dirt there. Because when they come in, they don't dry
Hmm.
clean, they don't touch them, they're preserved like that. So that dirt was from Lou Gehrig himself.
Hmm.
Probably my third most favorite artifact is this is a good story. It's a true story, but it makes the item actually more special. It's a bat, the Ted Williams bat. 1951, the Red Sox were facing the St. Louis Browns. We've got Ted Williams up to bat against Satchel Paige. Now, before I go any further, those who know baseball will already know they were very good friends. And Ted Williams, during his speech when he was inducted, spoke up of the blacks, et cetera, and Negro leagues, et cetera. Anyway, so Satchel's got 2 strikes on Ted, and he threw him a changeup, and Ted struck out. Ted was bad. Ted took the bat and smacked it on the railing of the dugout, and the bat broke. So here's this bat that is tied up with cloth down near the handle. The very, very cool part of the bat is that somewhere between the time he broke it and later on, he and Satchel ran into each other because Satchel Paige autographed the bat.
Oh my goodness
That
gracious!
is so
That is
cool.
awesome.
Oh, that was one of everybody. I don't care if you're a Red Sox fan or a Yankee fan, whatever. If that's just special. That is special. So the one end of the bat is all tied up with cloth where it broke. The other end of the bat is Satchel's autograph and the date of the game.
Beautiful. That what you just pointed out with Ted Williams. I mean, it was his speech at the Hall of Fame that kind of got really the ball rolling and shed some light and got things moving. Because up to that point, it had been kind of in the shadows. There were very few people talking about it, and I'm so glad that Major League Baseball, I mean, finally got around to recognizing the Negro Leagues as major leagues. They were all along. So yeah, Ted's got definitely, he's my father's favorite player. The Scranton Red Sox used to have I don't know if they were Class C. I don't remember back in the days, but I remember my dad. I'm a Phillies fan my entire life, but he was a Red Sox fan because we're talking about that connection to the community. The Scranton Red Sox were affiliated with the Boston Red Sox, and that's how he became a Red Sox fan, because of the local team that was affiliated with Boston, not with Philadelphia. So, yeah, there's so many little stories like that.
Phil, you're a Phillies fan?
I have been a Philadelphia sports fan. Went to Penn State. I've been down here.
If you're at the Hall of Fame and you go on the Phillies tour, at the very end of the tour, you get to see Michael Jack Schmidt's home run from home run 500.
That's right. I'll tell you what, that was when I became of age as a baseball fan, was in the 1970s, because I was playing Little League, got into high school at the back end of the 70s into the early 80s, when the Phillies were actually, pretty good. They were an exciting team back in those days. I could name every player off of all those teams. Growing up as a kid, I had this little transistor radio that was like a kind of like a bobblehead looking thing with the antenna broken off and the battery cover snapped off, but it only got AM. But every single night I could hardly wait to turn that radio on to listen to Harry Callis, Richie Ashburn doing a Phillies game. I mean, it was like a nightly ritual every summer. The winters were long, and it didn't pass fast enough till baseball season came again.
Up at the hall on the second floor, there's video boards. There's a 70s board, an 80s board, a 90s board, and a 2000 board. You can scroll through and pick out from those decades the video you want to watch. And many a time I'll walk by and there's Harry Callis announcing Michael Jack home run 500.
Unbelievable.
Smitty kind of does that funny dance down to first base.
Yeah, that little jig he did. Yeah, really. So it is coming up on the 50th anniversary, 50th year since the passing of Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
And so, retired 21. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, what is the hall? Is the hall? Are they doing anything this year at the hall for Roberto since it is 50 years?
There is talk already. There is talk. Actually, a very good friend of mine. I don't know if folks are familiar with the movie Chasing 3000. Bill Makita, who wrote the screenplay for the movie. I'm very lucky. He's a very good friend of mine. The movie was about Bill and his brother. It's a story about two boys who lived in the Pittsburgh area. Then their mom had moved them to California. They could not miss Roberto's 3,000 hit, so they basically hitchhiked back to Pittsburgh to be there in time for it. It's a great Chasing 3000. It's a great movie. Bill and I have talked. He would like to have a presence at the hall, maybe show the movie, because we got two anniversaries coming up this year. We got September 30th, 1972, which was Roberto's 3,000 hit. Unfortunately, then we've also got December 31st, 1972, which was Roberto's death. So, and there have been several of us that are talking about being in Puerto Rico on December 31st. I really would like to go there. I've talked to some folks from the Clemente Foundation. I do believe they're going. Nothing that I can speak of because I know no details, but there has been talk to have some type of a special ceremony or something in Puerto Rico, right there at the spot where the plane took off and plunged. So I think the hall is going to do something in
Cool.
regard to hit number 3,000. I think there will be some type of a ceremony for his death.
Cool. Do these stories that we're talking about, and you know them all, I'm sure, have being at the Hall of Fame. When you guys are distributing this equipment, do you relate any of this? I mean, because to me, the stories and the history and what you can learn from it and the legacies that many of these players carry on is just as important as any statistics
Right.
and numbers that they put together, which are important. That's why they're in the Hall of Fame mostly. But there's more to it. How do you guys help with carrying on those types of
Most
stories as
people,
well?
absolutely. Most people, well, obviously in Puerto Rico and Nicaragua. Puerto Rico because that's where Clemente's from. Nicaragua is because that's where he was trying to get to with the relief
Hmm.
supplies. So he's still loved in both countries. But no matter whether we're in the Caribbean, South America, Africa, whatever, his legacy, is still there. It lives on. I think that's a wonderful thing. That I've never had anybody who didn't understand what Roberto's kids means. They all know. Everybody, worldwide knows who Roberto Clemente is.
Hmm.
I mean, once again, I know I'm biased when I say this, but from working at the hall, that is probably still Roberto is probably my time there one of the most requested. If someone's going to the Plaque Gallery, X number of times a day, somebody wants me to show them where Clemente's plaque is. It doesn't matter if they're Hispanic, or not, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody, wants to see it. 20, let's see, the pandemic throws us all off. 2019, yeah, 2019 is when Mariano Rivera and Edgar Martinez both came in. And when someone is elected to come to the hall, the electee comes in. They come in one at a time for their orientation. They're there all day long. They come in the dead of winter when it's very, very quiet, and they have a tour of the museum, including the archives. They meet with the senior staff about the logistics of the weekend. They meet with local press, and there's a reception held for them. I actually was in the vicinity of Mariano Rivera on his day, and also I was near Edgar Martinez on his day that he came. I was actually lucky enough to watch both of them walk up to Clemente's plaque, and both of them got visibly moved by touching Clemente's plaque. So that's what he still to these Hispanic Hall of Famers or Major League Baseball players. He's still it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Steve, I appreciate your time. Again, it's roberto-kids.org.
Yep.
I highly recommend people go out there, check it out. If you can help, if they want to help, if you have areas that they can help distribute as well. I mean, you'll
Oh, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
because I'm sure that there are areas that uh, maybe they don't have quite the reach or whatever, but I would love to maybe
Right.
get involved in that side. I mean, here in Texas, you said they're in Pearland, so
Yep.
that's pretty close to Houston because I know that there are dozens and dozens and hundreds. I mean, I can walk to the baseball fields right down the road here. There are teams playing all weekend long, and I hope that you guys continue to do your work, keep growing,
Thank you.
double those countries. I think this was great. And I do appreciate your time. This was a lot of
Thank you.
fun. I'm sure you're going to see a lot of people from Kansas City up there for Buck O'Neill.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm gonna try to. My brother and I talked about it. He is in Virginia, so it's not that far. My sister still lives in Northeast PA, so I'm gonna try to get back there maybe around that time.
I look
So
forward to it.
I would.
I
I
look
will.
forward to shaking your hand.
That would be awesome. Steve, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Be well. Take care.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.